Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. I'm your host and moderator, Aaron Porras, and we have a special edition of Israel Weekly today as our top stories all focus around one major point of tension in Israeli society, religious observance. We'll be talking about a frozen plan at the Western Wall, Jewish conversions and identity politics, public transportation on the Sabbath, and more. But first, with me today to discuss these latest developments are Rabbi Dov Lipman of the Yesh Atid party and a former Knesset member, Rabbi Dov Halbertal, who is the former head of the Office of the Chief Rabbi of Israel and a former lecturer in Jewish law, Rabbi Galia Sadan, the former CEO of the Council of Israel Reform Rabbis and rabbi at Bet Daniel Congregation of Tel Aviv, and Linda Avitan, a board member with the Women of the Wall and co-chair of Adat Shalom Emmanuel Masorti Congregation in Rehovot. Welcome all of you to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So, turning to our first topic. The bill promising a mixed practice and mixed gender prayer space at Jerusalem's Western Wall, which passed in 2016, was shelved yet again as the cabinet meeting came to a decision that it would be too divisive for the governing coalition. Under pressure from ultra-Orthodox parties, Prime Minister Netanyahu froze the advancement of the space indefinitely, and supporters of the deal are understandably upset. Natan Sharansky, the head of the Jewish Agency, even canceled Netanyahu's invitation to an annual event, citing this decision, which Sharansky found to be weakening diaspora Jewry's connection to Israel. Chairwoman of the Women of the Wall, Anat Hoffman, shared some harsher words.
This is so outrageous. For anyone who believes in social change, it means that even when you talk to the government and you sign an agreement, it means nothing. We're going to the Supreme Court. In fact, we went already months ago, and we will demand that the Supreme Court will force Netanyahu's hand to do what's right. And what's right is equality. You can't take the keys to the holiest site of the Jewish people and just give it to a zealot minority.
So my first question goes to you, Rabbi Halbertal. Can the government really trust, or can the people really trust that the government is going to uphold their agreements? Because this is now the third time that this has been shelved.
In my point of view, that's not the question. The question is what the citizens in Israel, what they want, really. Not in politics view. And I think that most of the citizens of Israel, the big majority, is Orthodox. Orthodox in some way or another. There are the more Orthodox, there are the traditional, but most of the citizens in Israel are Orthodox. And comes one like Hoffman that we heard before. She represents few thousands, not more, here in Israel. And most of the majority of the reforms and conservatives, the millions of them, as they say, they live in America. So I will ask you, and I will ask those Americans like Jacobs, that he is the president of this reform society. I will ask him, look, we are serving here in the army. People are being killed here for the Wailing Wall. People were killed to free Jerusalem. You were sitting there in America, in barbecue in Miami Beach. You were sitting in Washington and eating, I don't know what, in the restaurant. Well, people here have been killed. What is your justice to come here and to say, if you are not doing, we are not implanting our values, we will disconnect the relationship with us.
That being said,
I think it's embarrassing. It's terrible.
But if you're talking about, the majority and listening to the will of the people, and even if it were true that the majority of the demographics in Israel were Orthodox, this was a vote that passed. And to kind of respond, I'll go, Dov Lipman, you look like you have something to say. Go for it.
Quite anxious. A few
too.
points. First of all, I'm Orthodox. I live in Israel. I will fight to the end for my right to pray as I choose at the Western Wall. If the reform and conservative movements were saying, we want to get rid of the separation barrier, no mechitza, we want to pray the Western Wall should be reformed, then I'd be fighting against them. They're not asking for that. They're asking for their place to pray, to have equality with the other groups. It doesn't impede on me whatsoever. And therefore, while I would agree that a majority of Israel is either Orthodox or leans Orthodox, traditional in nature, but no one's impeding on their right to pray as they choose in the Western Wall. That's point one. But point two, which I have to make.
Okay.
Even if they're not living in Israel, We claim to be the nation state of the Jewish people. There's no doubt that in my mind, the survival of the Jewish people, even the diaspora, relates to their connection to Israel. We can't have both of those and say, we don't embrace you and accept you in Israel. And the last point, which is perhaps the most critical, yes, we are fighting here and we have children in the army here. They're fighting for us over there as well. When it's lobbying in Congress, the White House, on college campuses, they are fighting against BDS. They are fighting to make sure that we have our security packages, and therefore they do have a stake in Israel, and therefore they do have a right to feel at home, not changing those who want to be Orthodox to have to pray in a different way, but to give them the rights to have access and equality as well. It's the right thing to do.
I'd like to say, first of all, I totally disagree. I think that the majority of the population in Israel is Chiloni, is secular. I think that it's true that not many are Reform or conservative. We're a small movement here in Israel, although we are the majority of the Jewish people worldwide. Nevertheless, the Kotel, which is a major heritage venue, a major heritage center for all of the Jewish people, is operating as if it was an Orthodox synagogue. And the question is why? Why the Kotel is separated, why the person in charge of the Kotel is an Orthodox rabbi. And I'll say, and perhaps my colleague here can perhaps respond to that, but even the Kotel, even if it is managed as an Orthodox venue, the women have very little space there to pray. Okay, so today, if you want to pray your way, my way, I want to pray together with my son, with my men and women together. People want to come and have bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs here together. If we go to Robinson's Ark, the archaeological park, which is just by the Kotel, the Western Wall, we have two choices: either to be burned by the sun in the southern part of the wall, or to risk ourselves of breaking our legs or something in the archaeological excavations. So the compromise of giving those people who wish, many, few, no, it doesn't matter, those people that wish to pray together, a location where we can pray together comfortably, free of charge, and we can enter that. I don't understand, why do we have to argue over that? Why can't we have each and every one of us pray their own way?
And I kind of want to hear from you on this subject before I ask my follow-up question. You know, how do you respond to this?
I totally agree with Rav Dov Lippman on the fact that we're not asking them not to pray in their way. We're not saying your way is not okay. And we, believe it or not, we don't want to hurt them. I feel very badly every month when I come and I see people are insulted by my customs, which are, by the way, halachically permissible. They're not the mainstream halacha, but they are halacha. It upsets me to upset other Jews, men, women, and I think that one of the reasons we agreed to the compromise was so everybody could pray in their custom and not hurt the other. We didn't want them to do away with the mechitza, as Rav Lippman said. We want our space, and we didn't even in the beginning. We don't want a mixed gender, but we joined with the conservative and reform movement so that everybody could have their place to pray. We wanted to be in the women's section, but if it's so difficult for them to hear us praying and to read the Torah, okay, so we will, in the name of peace for all Israel, we will move on the side, but we demanded, and it was agreed upon, that the space would be developed into an accessible and respectable place. And there was a plan developed, 3 years of negotiations. It wasn't something somebody thought of overnight and came to a vote from
Can
now.
I perhaps add something? I think that we're talking about a compromise. It's also a compromise for us, as Rabbi Lippman said. We would rather have the kotel without a mechitza, right? So it's a compromise for everybody. It's a compromise for the women of the wall, for the conservative and reform movement, for the Orthodox. And sometimes you just have to live with a compromise in the name of Klal Yisrael.
Well, we'll see. We'll see
Absolutely.
what happens when this comes, before the Supreme
No,
Court.
it's not. It sounds like it's so innocent. They only want to pray. They're nearby.
Excuse me, I don't
They
think-
want to be recognized here in Israel it's not only the Kotel. That's not a problem. The Kotel,
Well, that's-
the first in the history that it became a political operation and not a holy place. They wanted to be recognized here in Israel. That's the problem, and this is the argument.
well,
This is the reason that the government gave up the first.
Well, we are
the first
recognized
decision.
by the state of Israel, and the
We are not
Kotel had
recognized.
no,
We're not recognized.
and
Oh, we're
the
not
Kotel had
recognized.
no mechitza until the 70s.
That's not a question.
So,
That's
wait,
not
you
a
know,
question.
Unfortunately,
I-
unfortunately, we have to move on to our second topic. I'm sorry. I know this is just getting into it.
well, they are
But-
connected
Well,
anyway.
Everything is connected, exactly. So on to our second topic. At the same day that the bill for the shared prayer space was squashed, a second bill giving the Israeli chief rabbinate full authority over Jewish conversions in the country was also passed. The National Conversion Bill is already under attack as it threatens to delegitimize the legal identity of tens of thousands of Jews in Israel and worldwide. It rescinds the Jewish status of anyone who converted under any Jewish authority, Orthodox or otherwise, except for the Rabbanut. And this means people who are technically Jewish enough to move to Israel and join the army are not Jewish enough to have a Jewish wedding or divorce or be buried in a Jewish cemetery, and a host of other serious implications. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has already reportedly filed an appeal against the bill, saying that the new law is not a religious matter but religious coercion. He adds that the bill would, quote, deepen the rift among the Jewish people. The role of conversion must be an acceptance of those asking to be part of Judaism and not rejection and conflict between the State of Israel and Jewish groups, end quote. So, to begin, and actually I'll go to you this time, Linda. Is this religious coercion, do you think?
Of course it's coercion. There is no reason why people, let's say rabbis, could have a registry. A rabbi married my daughter, kedat v'kadin, kedat Moshe v'Yisrael, and it's not recognized, and there was nothing unhalachic about it. We should have a registry. Rabbis can sign up to be, rabbis of marriage. There's no reason why. It's all political.
So,
Right.
It's all political, and I would like to say that nobody can judge anybody else's kavanah in prayer. We started as a prayer group, and we ended up as a political group because of the disagreement on the Haredi side.
how would you respond?
I would
Sorry.
respond that all their conversion is on
Did
our
you-
view is
did you-
nothing.
did you
It's
check our-
nothing.
did you check
one
how
moment,
we
one
do it?
moment, one
Excuse
moment.
me, did you
It's not-
check that?
I don't have to check
No,
it.
you do need to
I
check it
don't
in
need-
order
I
to
don't
judge
need to-
it.
no, nothing.
Excuse me.
It's nothing. I will
You
tell
do
you.
need to judge it.
You don't convert. You don't go outside here and ask how we convert. What is the Jewish conversion? How it comes? It's a tradition. It's a tradition generation after generation. We, the Orthodox, keep this tradition. They have nothing.
You don't know
no
that.
canon, no laws,
to
nothing.
comment on that.
They have nothing. The reforms
You
are they are Jewish,
I
but they are
seriously need to comment
non-Jewish
on that.
in their.
You
I feel I have to pass the floor.
No, you
to-
obviously didn't do
we're
your
gonna-
homework on that
We're
one.
going to get to you in just a second.
I ran the conversion school at Bet Daniel congregation here in Tel Aviv. I've been dealing with converts and conversion for the last 20 years. And I think that the most important thing to say is that since 2002, Reform and Conservative conversion are recognized by the State of Israel, and all our converts are registered as Jews in the Ministry of Interior. And this is the most important thing. And to
It's the
try
disaster.
and try. I don't agree
Yeah,
because
it's
I think that the question is about Jewish identity, and if someone goes and converts through an Orthodox institute and then feels that they cannot fulfill all the halachic mitzvot and live an Orthodox way of life, so they lie in order to pass the bed in, that's a major problem. Whereas when someone goes through conversion, all-hearted,
It's nothing.
with
It's
with
non-conversion.
I think
Nobody
I think,
recognizes
I
it.
think I think that we
Nobody.
should.
You are not
That's
here.
the
You are in the
problem.
States.
I think
That's
that
the
we should
problem.
respect each other ways, and I want to say that the Reform and Conservative conversion, and we're talking about thousands of people that have converted through us and registered in the Ministry of Interior, and the Jewish conversion, the Reform and Conservative conversion, gave meaning for their Jewish life. Many of them live as Jews as it
They are
is.
assimilated.
And they're not assimilated.
All over the world.
Quite the
I'm gonna have to
contrary.
cut in. I'm gonna have to cut in.
I'm not someone who's coming in and saying we should just open up the doors. Anybody who does any kind of conversion, I do believe we have to sit together, all the streams, and find uniform policy about conversion. But we're missing the bigger story here. Living in Israel today are a few 100,000 immigrants from the former Soviet Union, whose only crime in this story is that they lived through 70 years of communism in their families, and they have a Jewish father or a Jewish grandfather. They don't have a Jewish mother. And therefore, according to halakha, even from my perspective, they're not Jewish. But they came here as Jews. They're fighting here as Jews. They're dying here as Jews. They want to be part of the Jewish people. And I can look at Rabbi Halberstadt in the eyes and tell him, without interrupting me, please, I'll show you a few hundred pages of sources that show that we can reach out to them and bring them into the Jewish faith, including response from Rav Ovadia Yosef. They could stand before the Beit Din and accept to be Jews. And the crime that we're committing on the religious side is that we are not allowing them to come in, and we are creating an intermarriage problem in the state of Israel because we've shut the doors to these people to become Jewish.
totally agree.
Years from now, history will look back on the rabbinate and the rabbis, beards and all, religious and all, and they will have caused the greatest tragedy to the Jewish people because of intermarriage, because we're so religious that we're going to go with the most stringent opinions instead of, you know what a rabbi's supposed to do? Not create problems, find solutions. And the solutions are there, and we have to be doing so. The decision the government made closed the door to rabbis who want to find those solutions within halakha to bring a few 100,000 into the Jewish faith. That is the greatest travesty of this week, and the Jewish people will suffer for generations if we don't fix it, and we're going to fix it.
Absolutely.
You will not succeed.
We will.
I
You never succeeded. You never succeeded.
God will allow us to succeed.
Never succeeded.
I think that history shows already.
History shows that only the Orthodox people stayed
that we
Jewish.
do succeed.
Only the Orthodox.
But not the
stayed-
extreme. But not extremism. Extremism destroyed the temple,
They are
Rabbi.
not Orthodox.
Extreme
She's not
Orthodox
Orthodox.
destroyed the
You are
temple.
almost not
Extreme
Orthodox.
Orthodox destroyed the temple. Don't forget that they ripped the Jewish people apart, and that's what you're doing
They
today.
are demagogic.
So I wanted to
Talmud, not
change the
demagogue.
topic. I wanted to change the topic to another question. You know, all in all, who stands to gain the most from this bill? You know, we have a lot of people who are here in this country already. You know, not just Jews from the United States or from other Western countries, but we have the Bnei Menashe, we have the Kaifeng, we have from Nigeria, from Ethiopia, from South America, who are all coming here and similar to what Rabbi Lippman just stated. You know, they're coming here with their own traditions. Whether or not that came from halakha or not, but they were Jewish enough to be recognized by the state to come here. So how is this in service of them?
It's not in service for them, and I'm against to be in service on them in this meaning that you told before. They are not Jewish. They're not Jewish. Even though the state recognizes us in some way or another, they are not Jewish.
And if they'd like
so
to
they have to come to the Orthodox and convert. Not
But
to
they
you,
will not
not to
come.
her, not to Rabbi
They will
Lippman.
not come.
They will not
No,
come,
but,
so they will
wait,
stay
wait.
non-Jewish.
Can I
want
just
to say
comment?
you one thing.
Rega,
They
can-
want, all
they-
those three
people-
here,
Last
want,
comments, and then
they
we're gonna move
want
to a third.
change the DNA
No.
of the Jewish
I
nation.
Zara,
And
totally
they
agree.
will
Zara,
fail. They will
Open the
fail.
Sfarim.
You will
Open Rabbi
assimilate.
Habertal.
You will
Abu
assimilate.
Ziel
Open
Tova,
the Sfarim.
assimilate.
Open
Rabbi
the
Uziel
Sfarim.
came up with a term Zera Israel, and we
Ah,
are
you can
following
say.
this halachic view, both in the conservative and reform and modern Orthodox, liberal Orthodox, and we are not trying to assimilate or to embrace assimilation. Quite the contrary. The thing is, how can you open your heart and your arms to people that came from the former Soviet Union, and we're talking about the third generation, so they came 300,000
So they're
people.
not Jewish. They are not Jewish. What can you do?
Just let me finish
The
my
fact
comment.
that they serve in the army
last thought.
doesn't mean they are
I-
Jewish.
I'm sorry, Rabbi.
That
I-
doesn't make Jewish
We can
somebody.
make them Jewish.
If you serve in the army in Russia, you became a citizen of
I
Russia.
insist on finishing my comment, please. Okay, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, maybe more than 1 million people that live as Jews, see themselves as Jews,
So what?
celebrate. celebrate Jewish holidays.
They're
and
from
all
the
we
Jewish
need,
people.
They are
and
not
all we
Jewish.
need,
They're
all
from
we
the
need is to
Jewish
find a
people.
way
Read our
to
lips.
let them.
They are not Jewish.
They're not
They
Jewish,
cannot
but
be Jewish
we need to help
they
them to
don't want to
become
be
Jewish.
Jewish.
They
They
do
want to
want
come
to
to
become
you.
Jewish.
No, the ones who want to
They
be Jewish,
want
we
to
don't
become
allow them.
Jewish.
They don't want to come to you.
They make
And
Rabbi
our challenge
Halbertal,
is
we're
to
gonna have
open
to
our
call
hearts
you
One
here.
moment.
and doors to them.
They don't want to come to you because they don't want to be in an extremist
what?
distancing.
So
They want to come to
stay
the
not
beautiful
Jewish, that's all.
Judaism that we're offering
You
them
will end up
according to
with a
halakha.
non-Jewish
They-
majority
According to
in
halakha.
I'm
Israel.
going to call it here. I'm going to call it here. We're going to move on to our third topic. I promise we'll have more time to discuss everything. And I'll remind that, we'll kind of keep the mood down. But for our final issue at hand today, as if Jewish identity and prayer wasn't enough, ultra-Orthodox lawmakers in the Knesset are now going for the hat trick, this time targeting both public transportation and work permits for Tel Aviv and its surrounding cities on the Sabbath. Shas Party lawmakers explained their position to the Transportation Ministry in a letter stating Amendment 28 of the Transportation Regulations enables the Transportation Minister to rescue the honor of Shabbat, and that the amendment states that the minister will take Jewish tradition into account as much as possible when it comes to prohibiting the movement of vehicles on the days of rest. In other words, reducing the desecration of Shabbat and Jewish holy days on public transportation. The letter goes on to describe their demands to cancel shared taxi permits and more. So the first question is, I looked up the demographics today. Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people, but more than half of the country identifies as some degree or secular or even not Jewish at all. This is demographics of the entire country. So are these restrictive practices not discriminatory? Lippin, I'm going to start with you.
There's no doubt that I would love to see an Israel where Israelis are observing Shabbat. I would love it. I think that the country needs it. I think that on a spiritual level, on a family level, it enriches people's lives. And I would like nothing more than to inspire people to observe Shabbat, whether it's exactly the way I do, the way they want to do. But that concept, I would like to see a Jewish state which is permeated with Shabbat. The way to accomplish that is not, from my perspective, to legislate. It's not to forbid. It's to inspire. Let people see the beauty of the way we live our lives when we observe the Shabbat, how much it adds to our Shabbat. The moment legislation is used and people feel coerced, all that does is push people further and further away from Shabbat. It could be that religious lawmakers can pound their chests and say, look what I did, I'm so religious, I force other people to have to observe the Shabbat. But if we're thinking about the Jewish people, and we're thinking about our future, and we're thinking about inspiration, we're getting nowhere in the process, and we're just pushing people further and further away. So I'm happy that Israel is a state that has rules about Shabbat. I'm happy that transportation is more limited on Shabbat. I think it's important to set a certain tone in the country, but to reach a point where we will absolutely shut down anybody's ability to function if they are secular, from my perspective, that's destructive to the goal of religious unity. It's destructive to religion as a whole. It's destructive to the venture that we're calling a Jewish state.
Linda?
I would totally agree with you. Although Women of the World does not have a policy on this issue, I would say that every place that there's legislation, as you said, it turns people away. Look what happens on Yom Kippur. There's no legislation, and everybody walks, and it's beautiful. It doesn't need to be legislated, and people in certain areas should have the freedom to make their own decisions, especially in places that aren't so religious. If Bnei Brak doesn't want transportation in Yerushalayim, people should be able to decide city by city. And there's some people that, as you said, aren't Jewish, and you said aren't Jewish. So the people you're calling not Jewish also have to observe the Shabbat, even though they're not Jewish, but they like to be Jewish, but we don't want them to be
You
Jewish.
have to respect the state.
Oh, we have to respect each other.
Yeah, I think that we have to respect each other, and I think that we have to distinguish between the term lishmor Shabbat ולשמור על השבת. To keep the Shabbat or to observe Shabbat in an Orthodox way, or to look after the Shabbat. To save the Shabbat as a special day. To have limited transportation, because we don't want buses going around and all the shops open. Certainly we want the atmosphere, or many, not all of us, many want a special atmosphere and relaxed day of the week or in the week. Mm-hmm. But I think that we also should consider the fact that in Deuteronomy, the law, the commandment that speak about the Shabbat, talks about those in need.
I'm so sorry, I apologize. I really, truly wish we could have kept this going, but unfortunately that is all the time we have today for this edition of Israel Weekly. Thanks again to our guests, Linda Zavitan and Rabbis Lippman, Halbertal, and Sadan. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Until next week, Shalom from Israel.
Thank you.